Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to. If you're interested in creating more balance in your life, understanding your 5-element energetic nature, finding the path of greatest ease,
or releasing the baggage of this lifetime and discovering ancient alchemy that can help you fly in your life, join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. My name is Jay, and this is Pod 35. I'm here with my co-host, Lena Herman.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers.
Welcome back, Actioneers.
We have been talking about life strategy from an alchemical point of view. And then the last podcast, we talked about the 9 palaces and specifically the career palace.
Yeah, that was crazy fun. I think we could have talked all night long about that.
Yes, and we're still getting a lot of do-it-yourself coaching questions and career questions, and we love it.
Just keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Keep them coming. And we've been getting some questions about the 9 palaces, which we're going to continue to work on in this podcast.
Yeah, so, I thought we could do a little recap of the past 2 podcasts. We've been kind of doing that. That's working good. Let's go deeper. Then we'll go to a deeper dive into the 9 palaces with relationships. Love. My favorite topic. It is February, so it's perfect.
Oh, right. It is. Yes. That's true. It's perfect.
That's perfect. So, Lita, why don't you do a couple highlights? Just a few things.
Well, as many of you know, have been listening to the podcast, the 9 palaces are just this really great way of looking at your life in a way that's balanced. And so it's all about your career, your relationships, your health, your wealth, your home, travel and adventure, creativity, your wisdom. And then the last one is prosperity, which is a little different than wealth. We'll talk about that when we get to it. And we've decided to break this down and really try to get all of you that are interested in this topic, that want to do it yourself, to be able to have some sort of exercises to explore each of these palaces. And so we started with career last time.
Yes.
We had a great discussion
about
of the
highlights was, I think, love it or leave it. So please do not take that literal. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow.
Yes.
Unless you're inspired to do so.
Yes.
Okay. But love it or leave it. So if you're not really truly loving where you are, then in your job or your career, career should be that passion, then you need to think about leaving it or how it can enhance your life more. That was one thing that I remember talking about. And definitely more fun.
Yes.
If you're not having fun at your job or your career, you need to reevaluate that.
Yes. And I like what Jay said to me the other day. She said, what we're really going for with the 9 palaces is not just an ordinary life, but an extraordinary life. Like, What would it take? This is what strategic alchemical life strategy is about. Like, what would it take to have an extraordinary life?
So I always say, if you want an extraordinary life, you need to do extraordinary things. These are the things we talk about in the podcast. So self-cultivation, extraordinary to get extraordinary.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, so the habits that we talk about, the time management, the 5 elements, the 9 palaces, it's all about doing extraordinary things to get balance in all of the 9 palaces.
Today, we're going to talk about the extraordinary relationship.
Yes, it's one of my favorites. And it's one of the 9 palaces that I don't think it's one of the domino ones like wealth or health, that when this goes out, everything else goes out of balance. But it's definitely probably number 1 or 2 what people always want to talk about.
Yeah.
They always feel like, they want to find the perfect relationship. They want to find that perfect person. They're really frustrated with their partner. So relationship comes up a lot.
Well, before we begin, let's just do a quick overview of some of the things about the podcast that we talk about each time. We have a new app we're really excited about. So you can go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and search for Inspired Action and Podcast, and you will
Just
be
look
able
for
to
the logo of
get our app.
Smiling yin and yang with the headphones on. And it's in this baby steps and it's in its infancy, but we are going to grow that app and we're going to have lots of cool stuff. We are just putting the finishing touches on some meditations that'll be up, I don't want to say by the time you listen to this podcast, but very soon.
And we already have a number of meditations in the app. The original ones we talked about.
They're already there.
Yeah, they're already there that we talked about in earlier podcasts. So check it out. And we are going to have some premium content available eventually.
Some extended shows coming up soon.
So we're excited about that. We'll let you know about that. And just a reminder, we have a Facebook group, Inspired Action Podcast. So you can go on our Facebook group and ask us questions.
You can also post a video about your walk for the 5 elements, or you can DM us because we get a lot of those too. People are shy.
And you can also email us at questions@inspiredactionpodcast.com. And if we use one of your questions in the podcast, you get a free Inspired Action t-shirt.
Dun, dun, dun. I'm looking over. It's another one of those days.
I think we're both wearing them on the same day.
Oh my God. That is so I'm looking down. I'm looking over. I'm going, uh-oh. Do we tell everyone? Yes.
Oh, no.
We have no secrets here, but we're both wearing. We have 2 different versions on, actually. I like mine better, but I'm sure you like yours better. That's why you're wearing it. So yes, questions, you get one of these cool shirts, and then we all can be nerds together on the same day.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, I love my shirt. It makes me very happy to wear it. And then one of the other things on our list that we have going on is the Master Alchemy program. And the application deadline is now closed for 2019. And wow, we got a huge amount of people that are going to be in the class. It's going to be fantastic. So if you're hearing about this for the first time and you're curious or you've been thinking about it, head over to the Inspired Action Podcast website. There's a big button that says map. It's not active as far as signing up, but we are already taking people for next year on a wait list, and we're going to have some information in a month or two to start to set up that next sign up process. And it's going to be an epic first year for this program. So if you're in, woohoo, congratulations. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's going to be great. And also, if you're a listener to the podcast, thank you. And if you're inspired to take a little action, go to iTunes and do a quick rate us. And you know what? Tell us why you like the podcast. We're very, very appreciative. And we're trying to make our way up the rankings in the health category, and every little bit helps. So thank you, and tell a friend.
And at the end of this podcast, we have a special giveaway for anyone who wants to take a second and rate and review or tell a friend, especially on social media. If you want to, go out and share it with friends. We just love that this podcast is growing so quickly. So many listeners all over the world.
Yeah. So we do have a little special giveaway that we're going to it's a little active participation on your part.
We'll explain it at the end of the podcast. And it has to do with our topic today.
Yeah, so 9 palaces, relationships. And it also weaves in the 5 elements. So there, I'm not going to say anything else until the end.
It's a surprise.
All right, let's talk about the 9 palaces and relationships. Lita, you start because you have this great way of explaining stage 1, stage 2.
Well, for the first topic of today is relationship with yourself. And this is
how am I not shocked?
Because really, you bring yourself to your relationship with someone else. And if you're not in a good place with yourself, it's not going to go very well with your relationship with someone else. And so stage 1 of alchemy is all about you. It's about, what do you really want in life? And it's also ends with the journey to your higher self, which if you go back into the really early podcasts, like 6 or 7 or 8, we taught that's all stage 1 of alchemy stuff.
Sure. So, I always say this is all about you, all capitals, Y-O-U.
Y-O-U. And then we're working on stage 2 right now, which is perfect why we're doing this part of the podcast. And it's about loving yourself. And so if you have had addictions in the past or a sense of self-hatred or anything like that, stage 2 is about really looking at that and healing it. And so we say in stage 2 of alchemy, the best protection's no protection because you're so good in yourself.
Yeah, I tell people that a lot. The best protection is no protection.
Let's say your partner's really dissing you and you're just feeling bad about that. You have to get to the point where you can realize that it's the other person who's having a rough day and not you. And so that's about loving yourself. And you can even take that
out in the world too.
Yeah.
Someone cuts you off, someone honks, someone flips you the bird, someone's mean to you, cuts you in line. Those are all things that you need to kind of just let go.
Yeah, let go.
With the flow.
And that's all the stage 1 stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And you can go back and look at some of our podcasts and we'll be talking about that more. Loving yourself.
It just made me think about it. When I explained stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, when you move to another stage, you don't stop doing the stage 1 stuff.
That's true.
Okay, you don't
Very
stop
good point.
doing the stage 2. So if things are, easy and flowing and letting go, those all just continue along.
Yeah, that's all stage 1 stuff.
Yeah. So all stage, you have to keep that going and just kind of integrate it into your life. And it doesn't go away. It just keeps going. And it might not be front and center, but it needs to always be flowing.
And if you need to do a lot of work on your loving yourself in stage 2, one thing you could start looking at is your triggers. We should do a whole episode on that. Mm-hmm. We all have triggers.
It's like little traps.
Traps
that you step in,
Yeah.
So what triggers you? And you'll start to really see. And what I like to have people do is also how do they feel when one of those triggers goes off? Besides that instant, rah.
Yeah. And
like how do you feel it in your body?
And if you can really love yourself enough that the things that remind you of the past that used to get you, aren't getting you anymore,
Yes.
Because it's not about you.
Yeah, and it's it might be like, oh, I used to remember in the past that person always kind of ticked me off, and look, I went all day and I didn't even tick me off, or all week, or I went through that whole holidays are big triggers, and I didn't even get mad at them once.
Okay, that's the wood version. Let's go with the fire version. Okay. How about that person looks like they don't love me?
No, but what if it was good and you didn't even notice it? It was a slight change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you've been doing the work for a while, and then you go to Thanksgiving and it does end in a food fight and a yell fest and, people being throwing things at you. That's a good day, right?
Yeah, that's a good day for a wood person.
What about a fire person?
Oh, fire person. It's all about whether or not you're liked and loved, and whether you're going to sit in the corner and mope and cry.
Or be the center of attention.
Yes.
All right. I was just trying to give an advice for someone who was doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And the triggers are getting less and less.
Yes.
So how would you know if they're getting less and less?
You're not as reactive.
There you go. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah, just because I was having food fights and yell fest, but
well, there's lots of ways you can be reactive.
So how would it be for an earth person?
For an earth person, it would be really shutting down because people are so misunderstanding you.
All right. So that's something that people can start to look at as they move through, and hopefully they'll be less reactive.
And there'll be a lot more in the stage 2 part of this podcast where we're going to be talking about loving yourself. So we'll delay that a little bit. And let's move on to having a partner. If you already have a partner, this is really about your relationship. This podcast is all about that.
And it's, we'll go into the partner thing, but it's also about your relationship with your children, relationship with your parents, relationship with everyone around you. But most people want to focus on
their partner.
Love. The love relationship, the romantic relationship, or lack of. I have many people who are in relationships who have just been kind of going through the motions for a long time, and their partner is not really into it. Like they're just checked out. I have a lot of people who come in and they really want to find that person. They really that's all they want to do is find that person to spend the rest of their life with.
Yeah.
And then I have people who have been really hurt.
Yeah.
And I really think that when you start to look at the 5 elements and how the energies flow, let's talk about that later too, about the relationships as far as the 5 elements. I think people will like that.
Yeah.
But I really do think that elements see relationship differently in each element.
Yes. So the first question is to ask yourself when you're examining your relationships is, do you want to be with that person?
Yeah, I always say, first question I ask them, are you happy in that relationship?
That's
so is
a good
that the
way
same?
to put it. Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah, are you happy in that relationship? Is it working for you? Is it rewarding? We could even go with are you thriving in the relationship, or are you just surviving?
I think there are 3 categories. There are people whose initial instinct is, yes, I'm happy. And, they might have this to work on and that to work on. And, every relationship is some level of compromise.
Totally.
And then there are the people who have been questioning the relationship their whole time.
Yeah, some people day one.
Yeah. And then there are the people who really know that they shouldn't be in that relationship.
Yeah, who also stay.
Who stay anyway.
For different reasons,
for
whether
kids
it's children,
or whatever, finances.
All kinds of stuff. I've heard so many different things. And, obviously I'm non-judgmental, so I don't really, doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm just, working with this person to get through their own situations. But I always just love to work on a relationship because it starts with exactly what you said. It starts with how's a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're saying no, I'm not happy with myself, and then I ask you, are you happy in the relationship? What do you think the answer is going to be?
Right. Right. Well, let's start
What
with...
do you think the answer is going to be?
No.
No.
Definitely.
No.
I thought it was rhetorical. I thought that was obvious.
No, it's a podcast. We do have to speak a little bit. No visuals. So that you can clearly see that if the relationship with yourself is slightly not where you want it to be, or dramatically where you don't want it to be, then so here's the other thing: if you're not happy with yourself and you want to do self-cultivation and make your life better, and you're not with someone, it's almost the perfect time, because you can then manifest and visualize that person that you really want. I have people write a whole paragraph about the perfect person. What do they look like? What do they smell like? What do they dress? Where do they live? What part of the country? Like, what's the weather? Really get into details about what this person they're looking for.
Right.
It's very insightful.
And I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 5-element interactions in relationships later, or even in the next podcast. We might break this up into 2, and we'll be talking about what it's like to have 2 wood people together versus a wood and metal person, so we're going to...
Some of them are very complementary and some are definitely more challenging.
So if you're looking for someone to love for the rest of your life, or for the next year,
you might want to be energetically compatible.
Yeah. And so we're going to explain that in a later on in this podcast, or probably the next podcast. We have a lot to cover today. And I think the other thing we should talk about right now is, if you're not sure about your current relationship, or you think it's wrong, it's not working out.
Well, we don't use right or wrong.
Yeah.
How about if you're just not in alignment with it?
Yeah.
And your heart is saying, I think we can do better.
Then here's what we've learned. Can it be turned around through therapy? We do 5-element consultations to help people understand each other better.
We are not therapists. We always say there are a couple therapists who are out there who can do these kind of things. But if you want to talk about the 5 elements, it does help to see for people to hear it.
We recommend both therapy and looking at the 5 elements. So, but the number one thing that needs to happen is both people need to want to change to make it work.
Yep.
And if one of the partners, usually the person we're not talking to, because the person that comes to us usually wants a change, if the other person is absolutely unwilling to change, it's not going to work. Yeah. It's just an impossible situation.
Just think about it. They're obviously, the relationship is somehow serving them on some level, because they don't want to change at all, even if they know it's not working.
Or they're just afraid of change.
Yeah. Well,
and so that's a really important thing to think about. And so if you're faced with leaving a relationship, that's a huge relationship palace issue. That's like the biggest thing in your life.
Like I said, it's not a domino, but it can definitely influence other ones for sure.
Because it's going to influence your finances. It's going to influence any children.
Health comes into play. They make themselves sick or nervous, or they even could be some abuse, but usually that's not the case when they're with me.
And maybe you just don't want to leave because you don't want to be lonely.
Right. Totally.
And that goes back to loving yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not the most exciting thing in your own life, then that's got to be looked at. Because if you're relying on a partner to give you that.
Yes. And, I ask people, sometimes they just like, it's so boring. And then I'll say, well, do you consider yourself exciting and your partner's boring? Or are you both boring? And a lot of times I get both boring.
Yes.
Because they're in a rut, or they've given up, or they're not really following their passion, or they left their job to raise the children.
Right.
And now guess what? The children's about to fly the nest, empty nest syndrome. And they're like, I'm just about questioning everything.
So if you're thinking that the relationship you're currently in isn't working out, there's a few things we usually recommend before you actually ditch it. And that would be, first, start by loving yourself.
Yes.
So you could take quite a lot of time to work on that. That may take you a while.
And if you're in the companion mode with this person already, it's easy to do work on yourself.
Yeah.
At the same time, because you know what? A lot of times they're not even paying attention.
Yeah.
So you can do a lot of stuff and still be honest and loving and kind and gentle and not to do anything, deceptive or manipulative. But honestly, you're working on yourself.
Yeah. And then the next thing is to, and this may sound trite, but make a list of the things that are bad that you want to change. And put that in a positive way.
I don't always say bad. I'd say, what do you feel like is lacking? Or what do you really, even that sometimes is a little bit leading. I would say, what are the things that you're looking for? And then when they write things down or we talk about it, I'll say, well, where do you fit into that?
And I often say that if you write a list of the things you want to be different, you're putting out to the universe like a request.
Mm-hmm. And you need to be positive.
And that might be, put it in a positive statement. And then see if your partner begins to fulfill those requests. Yeah. Or if it becomes very obvious that partner's never going to fill those requests, then you're more sure that you should leave.
Well, it is important to do the list. I once had someone I was working with, and like I want someone to go hiking, and I want to go out and do adventures. And I said, that sounds great. I said, do you like to go hiking? And she's like, nah. And I'm like, well, do you like to do adventures? You just said it. And she goes, well, I think I might. So you have to really figure out what you want.
Yeah.
So why would you think you want someone who's going to go out and do adventures and hiking and different things if you don't even want to do that?
That's weird.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
But they like the idea of someone who wanted to do things.
Maybe they just wanted to have someone encourage them.
Yes. Or they just wanted to get off the couch and do stuff.
Right.
Or probably a partner to do stuff with.
Now, the other thing that you can practice if you're in a relationship that you are pretty sure you might want to leave is something called Ho'oponopono. And we're going to probably have a whole episode on Ho'oponopono later. It's a Hawaiian tradition, a belief system, basically. But on a very simple level, I call it advanced forgiveness. And this is how it works. You can do this with your partner. And I've had a lot of people do this, and it's been amazing.
It's not just for leaving.
Yeah, no, it can be used for anything.
Right.
But let's say you're mad at your partner. Okay.
What?
And, yeah.
That could never happen.
Never happen. Okay. And so whatever.
Let's just fantasize. No.
And maybe you're mad at them all day long. Like every little thing annoys you, right? So what if instead of being mad, you decide to practice this advanced forgiveness throughout your day after day, do it for a while, maybe a month or two. What can happen when you practice this is that your partner starts to change. And what this does is actually by you reframing how you think about that person then is kind of given this opportunity to be better.
Sure.
And
is that similar to only seeing the good in the other person?
It is like that. But
more
it's very
action?
powerful. So this is how it works. We'll put this in the show notes, but you can write this down if you're not driving. You're going to think about your person and you say these 4 things. You say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And you say it over and over again in your head. You don't have to say it out loud if you don't want to.
Wow. So that's the, how do you say it?
Now here, Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. Okay, that was really bad.
Ho'oponopono.
Okay, so just listen to Lita. She'll say it again.
Ho'oponopono.
You can do that. Or you can just do the lazy version, which is only see the good in the person.
Yes. Now, there is one statement.
Wait, is lazy a bad thing? You don't want to be a lazy person seeing the good in someone.
That's right. That's good. So the one statement of those 4 that might confuse you is, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I saw that coming, yeah.
So why would you say you're sorry when it's obviously the other person's fault? That's why you're mad at them. So the reason is, in the Hawaiian tradition, they believe that you create your own reality, which is also a Taoist belief.
Sure.
And so very much in alignment with the podcast.
Hawaii is a pretty happy place.
Yeah. Somehow, something about you is bringing this negative experience into your life. And so you're apologizing to them for thinking of them as being so rotten and horrible and all the things you think that you're blaming them about. So you're apologizing that you've created that sort of view of them.
And I think it's a happy and a nice way of looking at accountability.
Yeah, we talked
like this
about
built-in accountability. You're taking your own responsibility for that experience.
Yes. So again, if you want to do it, it's I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you for showing me that I'm having this wrong belief, and I love you. So that's it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you, and thank you. Or one. It doesn't matter the order.
Boy, the world would be a much happier place if a lot more people did that.
Yes.
So we will put that in. And you know what? We'll talk about that later on. And my short version is to only see the good in the other person.
Yeah. And so you're basically changing, if anyone out there knows anything about fields, but if you think of energy as like a field of energy around you, and you're putting out this field of energy that's basically thinking about your partner in a negative headspace. Maybe you talk bad about that person every time you're out with your friends. Oh, my husband, blah, 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 blah. He's always doing blah, 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 blah. I mean, you're actually creating a field of energy that's negative about your husband.
Yeah.
And now, by
that's never a good sign either.
Yeah. No, it's usually you're on your way out by the time you're doing that. So if you now create a different field, you're creating a field of energy where you are basically looking at him in a completely different light. Then now he has the opportunity to change.
Yeah.
Whereas the field that you've been putting out is fixing him.
Let's get some fixins.
Some fixins. It's fixing him into
I'll take a side of love with some fixins.
That'll solve your relationship problem. Okay, so it's fixing.
Wow, where did your mind go? Right down to the gutter. That didn't take long.
Oh, I'm fire, remember? I can do that.
Yes.
So the fixing.
Okay, so you're fixating on the fixins.
All right. By fixing him in a stuck place, he can't move out of that.
They're literally stuck in from his perspective and from your perspective.
Yeah. So my wife thinks I'm a blank. Therefore, I always behave like a blank. And now I can't find any way to be any different.
And it's also a little bit touching on, we talked about the shifting identity.
Yeah.
In the past episodes. And that's going to come up again in the future when we get a little more advanced. But it's about shifting the identity or the perceived identity of the other person.
How is your partner going to change their behavior if both of you think that partner is always
late all the time? Or lazy or never picks up his stuff.
Not paying attention.
Or not paying attention.
He never pays attention. I can't believe it. He's just completely oblivious.
Or not listening. I hear that a lot.
Not listening. Yeah. All these things. So if that person isn't doing that, and then you talk about it all the time, and that person's aware of it because now you're harping about it. So it just becomes a big mess and that's the identity you both believe.
All right, so there's a couple good ideas. And then let's talk a little bit about Abraham, because I think Abraham has a lot of good affirmations and ways to manifest this partner relationship thing.
That's a great idea. I usually say when you make the list of the things you want to be different, you could make the two lists. You could make the list of what you're looking for in your relationships in general, and then you could make a list of what isn't kind of working in your relationship right now, and you could say make it your list of things you want to be it to be different.
Well, I like to suggest to take that list, and if I have someone say write 10 things that you hate about your partner or want to change, they write it down, and then I make them crumple it up, throw it away, and we just go with what do you really want.
Because I really do think that the list of what you don't like about your partner might begin to be the list of what you like about a partner, because you give the opportunity for that person to be your person.
Yeah. And also I like to point out or reference or bring to attention, how is that person that I'm talking to acting? They might say that their partner is really just sitting on the couch all the time, not really doing their own thing. And then I'll say, well, what are you doing? What's the interaction? What's the balance?
Now that's my next topic.
Okay.
That's perfect. Because the other thing that you should look at is yourself.
Yeah.
And I would like to talk about phlegm.
Nice.
How's that for a non sequitur?
Oh.
Okay, so this is a Chinese medicine concept, but there is this idea of phlegm. And what it really means is that, you know how when you're depressed, you always want to eat sugar? Or just like a lot of like...
Well, that's rampant in this country.
Yeah, or even like if you eat a ton of chips, honestly, you're just getting sugars in your body. It doesn't really matter if they're sweet, or like potato.
Okay, I think that's a worldwide thing. Never mind just this country, the US.
No,
it's all over the world.
So if you are feeling down and out and you're mad at your partner, or you're just sad or whatever, you want to eat these foods.
Is it emotional?
It's emotional, but there's a reason in your body because it creates what we call it's like a buffer. And so the idea of phlegm is not really like phlegm in your nose. It's just this like stuff that kind of buffers everything.
Wow.
So when you're upset about something, you're actually like, I'm not going to worry about it today.
Bleep it.
Yeah. Or, my partner.
Can I say that? Bleep it.
Yeah, right. Bleep it.
Yeah.
So or F it. How about that?
That's what I was trying to say, but not without the F word there.
Okay.
You couldn't get bleep it for F it?
No,
okay.
I wasn't sure.
Okay, for those who are really F it. I was trying to say it nicer, but okay.
So if you want to work on yourself in your relationship, if you can find a way to stop eating those foods, guess what? Ignoring the problem is not going to be okay with you anymore. You're going to have to face it.
So if you clean up your act, you're going to clean up your act.
Yeah.
How's that?
So if you're really stuck in this relationship where both of you are just and you don't even know how to get out of it, the first thing you need to do is clean up your diet so that you can kind of have a less effort, reaction to the whole thing and just keep going with the status quo. Basically, you're forcing yourself to care.
Wow. And I think that goes also with our self-cultivation of the body, mind, the spirit. So the body is nourishing with water, food, sleep, all those good things.
And we talk about how the 9 palaces are so related to each other. So here we go. Look, health is getting sacrificed because the relationship isn't working. The longer the relationship isn't working, guess what? You're going to be less healthy.
Yes.
Partly because you're eating these kinds of foods, but also because you're not happy.
Right. And I also like to talk about the extreme. If you are in a relationship that's dangerous or really, really, not in a good place, if you don't have the courage or the strength to leave, your body will make you. It'll make you sick.
Yeah.
It'll make you sick, and then you'll have to do something.
And maybe you've been eating a lot of sugar. Yeah. So that's partly it too,
And that's also with career. If you have a career that's really stressful or intense and it's not serving you, your body will break down. And then guess what? You'll have to change that job or career.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a job, usually.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I like it. Clean up your act.
And if you are going to leave your relationship, one of the things just when at the moment in time when you start to decide this for sure, there is one thing that I've noticed. Once you say to yourself, it's over, I'm done. If you're kind of hemming and hawing and then you suddenly decide, maybe I'll stay. That moment in time when you say, maybe I'll stay, if you're bawling your eyes out and freaking out for a while, then the decision is made. You should go and you can't go back.
Yeah.
Once you kind of let your spirit make that decision that you're leaving and you try to stay, it's done.
Is that kind of like going against your destiny?
Yeah. And if you stay, believe me, you will get sick. I mean, there's almost like this intensity that I have to leave at that point. Yeah. So that's just something to think about if you're in that situation. Yeah,
let's talk about good relationships.
Yeah, let's talk about good relationships.
So let's talk about good relationships through the 9 palaces and how can you be the best partner?
Yeah. Like we were talking, an extraordinary relationship.
Yes. Not just an okay, not just good enough.
Yes.
What would be the extraordinary? So if you want an extraordinary relationship, what are the extraordinary things that you can do?
So the first thing you have to
self-cultivate, first of all,
is survey yourself. How are you doing in your own relationship?
We kind of touched on that already, like, a little bit about if you want something in a partner, what do you have to offer them?
And what would make them happier?
Yeah.
Like, what is their happiness level in the relationship?
Yeah, and how can you put more into the relationship?
Yeah.
And they might be like, I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm putting in more and more and more. But really? Where are you coming from?
I think we could break it down into 3 things to really look at. What's your intimacy level? How is your communication? And then what's your acceptance of each other's kind of foibles? That person always is like that. I guess I can let them be like that. That's who they are.
That's another one of those stories that you're saying. So, all right, let's
but
go.
So
how can we make the level of happiness go up? The level of satisfaction go up? The level of the heart connection go up through those 3 questions?
Well, intimacy, let's start with that. It's a very important component. And so many couples,
it's the first thing that goes.
The first thing that
or
goes.
Starts to go.
Yeah.
Because that's that intimate level of the hearts are connected, things are really great, and everyone is lovey-dovey, or it's really intense sexually, or things are just humming along really good.
And it takes work to keep intimacy going in any relationship. And it doesn't have to be always sexual. It has to be involving touch and, whether you're snuggling or making love or whatever, it has to happen. But that level of intimacy and connection is really paramount.
Yeah, and it's a balance.
In a relationship.
And when it starts to get out of balance, then you could lead it to really big things like betrayal, or just mistrust in general. But we want to, again, get the level of happiness up. So what can we give a couple thoughts on how to work on the intimacy? Well, obviously
honesty, but also the acceptance comes in again.
Yes.
Because if one of you is fire and the other one is any of the other elements, the fire person wants more intimacy probably than the rest.
Definitely.
Or maybe earth. Fire and earth, I'd say, are number 1. So and that doesn't mean the others don't, but that can wane. And so it's important to recognize that some people have a stronger need for that especially sexual intimacy, and others don't. And then the partner that's not needing it as much needs to be cognizant of the fact that the other person really needs that.
Well, I hear a lot of they just don't listen to me.
Well, I think that's communication.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Open lines of communication.
Okay.
Are there open lines of communication?
Yeah, that would be when that starts to shut down. When that starts to shut down, then other things can creep in.
And guess what? If you're earth or fire, you need that partner to be communicating.
I think wood too.
I mean, all of them.
Yeah, all of them,
but
really.
It's
maybe not water.
Yeah, it's
water is experiential there.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone wants open lines of communication, but there's different levels.
Yeah. Definitely.
And earth is definitely the most processing, which can be a source of contention in a relationship when earth is with someone who doesn't really want to process. And they're like, we need to talk about our feelings. We need to talk about, the other person's like, I don't really want to talk.
When communication shuts down and intimacy shuts down, then you know what comes next. No sex.
Yeah.
That's what's gone.
Yes.
So then now you have another level.
Yes.
So if you want to work on the things to keep the happiness level up, intimacy is important. So keep awareness of that. Open lines of communication, even if you have to work a little harder to make sure you have this quiet time together and really talk honestly and communicate with each other. I mean, if you're out of practice, it's like a muscle. You have to work it.
Yes.
To get it back in shape.
I think what we can do for a homework assignment for people who are already in a relationship, no matter how good or not good you think it is, I think that this is a time to do a little analysis.
Yeah.
A 9-palace discussion with your partner.
Yeah.
So you don't have to just talk about intimacy. You could talk about finances and other things, but the most important thing is that you're having that open line of discussion and you are saying, what can you do to have a rocking relationship?
Yeah.
Just really, like Jay said, an extraordinary relationship. That's a discussion that you have with your partner. So for homework, it's like, talk to your partners.
And you know what? and listen to what they say.
Yeah.
It might not be what you want to hear, but you need to hear it.
Yeah. And so that authenticity, you need to go at it where both people are in a really good state of acceptance of each other.
And it's definitely non-judgmental. And you can set up some parameters with your partner and say, let's just have a talk. Let's not judge each other. Let's just, talk about some things, because you start going, well, you're not taking out the trash and you're not doing this and you're not doing that. Then that's not what this is about. And
there is a technique that's really awesome that's used in therapy called imago. And in imago, before you have a discussion, you both say how much you love each other.
Okay, and that's a really good thing.
And it's a really wonderful thing.
You should be doing that anyways.
Yeah, you should be doing that anyways. And in particular, you can say something you love about them. I love that you're this, and I love that you're that.
That's seeing the good in them. That's shifting the identity. Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic.
That could be the starting place of the conversation. Now, in imago, the person who's listening just listens, and the person who's talking says their thing.
So if that resonates, you could go try to find one of those therapists around.
Yes, if you're having the need to actually work stuff out.
Yeah, and you have a non-communicative partner, they could maybe work those skills, work those muscles. And I also like to remind people, do not kitchen sink them. Okay, what I say is throw everything in the kitchen sink. Do not try to tackle every single challenge or issue or concern or thought in the first time you do it. Because, oh my God, it'll just be like a tidal wave. The steamroller. You'll just roll them over. So pick a couple. Maybe start with not the most serious ones. That's the other thing. Maybe start with some of the more gentle ones. The more ones that would be, that you think that they might be also feeling. Don't start with the big giant ones. And try to be gentle and kind and loving and accepting. That's acceptance.
And, relationships are work. Not everyone wants a relationship. I know that sounds like a radical idea, but...
Especially if you're in a relationship. What does that mean? I'm like, what?
If you sat in stage 1 and asked yourself what you really want, and the answer was not to be in a relationship, then you kind of need to look at that.
That's a challenge.
Yeah. Because there are people in the world who just want to be alone and they want to have a relationship with themselves, and that's their self-cultivation.
Do you think that they want to have a self-cultivation and relationship with themselves, but really be alone? Or they want to have that space in the other relationship to explore themselves?
Well, there are people who like a lot of space in a relationship. So, for example, metal people can really have a lot of space in a relationship and give each other a lot of space. So that's why I often say two metals work really well together.
That would not work with wood.
No.
Wood needs to be engaged a lot. So if you have a wood partner or you are a wood partner, you're talking like a lot of engagement, a lot of co-creating together. That's a nice, gentle way of saying that.
Yes.
And I think the goal of a strong wood person in a couple would be what I like to have in my life is what I call co-independent.
Instead of codependence.
Right. Co-independence, where you have two people living with one life and you can do a lot of things together and really be engaged, but you're still trying to walk that path.
Yes. And that actually makes me think that this would be a good time to break. And then we're going to, in the next podcast, I think, what Jay's talking about is the 5-element relationships.
Yeah. So we can interchange and overlap and mix in the 5-element energies with the 9 palaces.
Yes. And so...
Because you know why? Because people always say, why do you think they do this? Why do you think they're not doing that?
Yeah.
And then we have to talk about energies.
And really, the next podcast then is going to be about accepting your partner.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Understanding why they do the darndest things.
So that'll tie into this relationship. So we'll do that's really great. Okay, I love that idea.
Awesome. Okay.
So accept your partner, be kind, be gentle, be patient.
And be authentic with each other.
And be honest and authentic. And baby steps. Don't try to solve the relationship in one outing.
Yes. That makes sense.
Great. Okay, so that's a great place to end. I like that. And keep listening for more on relationship. So if you have any questions, please keep sending them to us. And if we read any of them on the air, which we're going to be doing a show soon, you will get the Inspired Action t-shirt, which is awesome. Take a minute, rate, review, tell us why you like the show.
The more podcast. People who hear about this little podcast, the merrier.
Yeah, we're trying to make our way up the health category in iTunes. It's doing really good, and tell a friend.
Yes. All right. So that's it for today.
Oh, so thank you for listening. And now, if you're still listening, we're going to tell you about the giveaway that we have. So anyone who's listened to the end of the podcast, you should just get this book for free for being still listening.
Yes. So we have a book called The Energy of Love, which many of you have probably seen or heard about us talk about on the podcast, but it's really relevant to today.
Yes, we should have mentioned that in the beginning.
Yes.
So The Energy of Love is about 5 elements in relationships.
Yes. And so in the next podcast is going to be all about that book. So for the whole month of February, if you share with your friends on Instagram or Facebook and send us a little email.
Maybe do a rate and a review and tell us why you like it.
Yes.
Any kind of interaction with us.
But particularly getting other people to listen to the podcast would be awesome.
We will send you a free copy anywhere in the world.
So DM us and tell us what you did and give us your address and we will send you free
a copy
book
of the 5 elements. And also, if you ask a question and you really want us to answer it, we will also include a free t-shirt, Inspired Action t-shirt. So,
awesome.
But you got to do some action. You got to do some inspired action.
There you go.
To get the book, to get the t-shirt. And we have some other swag coming out too. So we'll do that as well.
So the book is really awesome. We wrote it for lay people. It's not a Chinese medicine book. It's a book about relationships and love.
And the 5 elements.
The 5 elements.
So, all right. That's great. Thank you for listening.
Yes. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Inspired Action podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.